Prabhu, you are now host. I've given you.
Yeah, I saw that. Thank you.
Krishna Kirtana Gana Nartana Prabhu Premamritam Banidhi Veera Veera Jana Priya Priya Karo Nema Rang Pujita चैतन्य कृपा भरौ भुवि भुव भारा वहन तारकौ वंदे रूप सनातन रघुजुगौ श्री जीव गोपालकौ वंदे रूप सनातन रघुजुगौ श्री जीव गोपालकौ कृष्ण कीर्तन गान कीर्तन गान नर्तन परम प्रेम वीर वीर जन प्रिय प्रिय करो निर्मा तन्ना कृपा भरौ श्री चैतन्य कृपा भरौ भुवि भुव मारव अंतरकौ वंदे रूप सनातन रघुजुगौ श्री जीव गोपालकौ विचारणैक निपुणौ सद्धर्म संस्थापकौ लोकानां हितकारिणं त्रिभुवने मन्नं शरण करो விசாரணை கணுக்குன தர்ம சமஸ்தாபக லோகானாம் हितकारिणं त्रिभुवने मन्नं शरणाकर
Side.
जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरा Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindra ki jai. Ramacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivas Adi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Sri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Sam Kund Radha Kund Giridhar ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadvip Dham ki jai. Swami Ito Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Jamuna Mai ki jai. Tulasi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Swami Ito Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Mother Lila. You're welcome. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, my obeisances to you and to all
Hare
the assembled
Krishna.
devotees.
Hare Krishna. So we welcome everyone to today's class. If you're ready, I'm going to put the verse on the screen. And
Yes,
then-
that's okay.
Okay.
What time is it there, Prabhu?
It's 4 minutes after 10.
In the morning.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so we're at the same time now.
No, I'm in Pennsylvania.
Oh, you're in Pennsylvania. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone.
What state are you in?
I'm in Florida now.
Florida. Okay. All right. Thank you. So the verse is on the screen.
Okay, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, let's begin. I'll begin with just some prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamutirayet. Nashta Prayesa Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Om Jnanathimirantasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 11th chapter, verse 21. Bhagavam statra bandhunam pauranam anuvartinam yatha vidi upasangamya sarvesham manamadadhe. Bhagavan Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, tatra, in that place, bandhunam, of the friends, pauranam, of the citizens, anuvartinam, those who approached him to receive and welcome, yathavidi, as it behooves, upasangamya, going nearer, sarvesham, for each and every one, manam, honor and respects, adadhe, offered. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, approached them and offered due honor and respect to each and every one of the friends, relatives, citizens, and all others who came to receive and welcome him. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is neither impersonal nor an inert object unable to reciprocate the feelings of his devotees. Here the word yathavidhi, or just as it behooves, is significant. He reciprocates just as it behooves with his different types of admirers and devotees. Of course, the pure devotees are of one type only because they have no other object for service but the Lord. And therefore, the Lord also reciprocates with such pure devotees just as it behooves. Namely, he is always attentive to all the matters of his pure devotees. There are others who designate him as impersonal, and so the Lord also does not take any personal interest. He satisfies everyone in terms of one's development of spiritual consciousness, and a sample of such reciprocation is exhibited here with his different welcomers. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So short and sweet for this purport. Okay. I'll just read the translation again. Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, approached them and offered due honor and respect to each and every one of the friends, relatives, citizens, and all the others who came to receive and welcome him. Okay, so dear devotees, I seek your blessing so that I may say something useful today. Thank you so much. So this verse, there's a party happening in this these verses. There's a party going on, the streets are being decorated, there's great celebration. And this is showing us the culture that was present during when Krishna was present, and the culture of receiving a guest and showing what was done. The streets are cleaned. Imagine that. I've also heard this of other cultures. For example, when the Spanish went to Mexico, there's accounts that the marketplaces were so clean, and these are outdoor marketplaces. The marketplaces were so cleaned that you could walk barefoot and not get your feet dirty. And so this culture of cleanliness is generally tied to cultures that are in a sense very spiritual, and they see the importance of it, right? Cleanliness is next to godliness. There's people performing here in this celebration, and so in this verse, Krishna is reciprocating with how he's being greeted. So the Srila Prabhupada uses the word behooves. So as it behooves, so as is appropriate, or as is befitting to how he's receiving love and respect. And so he's returning the same love and respect. And so interestingly enough, there are all different types of characters. Every social class is being displayed here. So there, it came up in some verses before, and then I think in the verse tomorrow, there's a reference to dog cookers, which is translated as dog eaters. And a couple verses back, prostitutes and how beautiful they looked. And so I think this is very telling. It tells us something not only about the culture and what's happening, but who Krishna is in the sense of how Krishna behaves, how he treats people, and how he gives respect to everyone, every single person, not based on their caste, not based on their not based on some self-interest. Sometimes people are given respect and honor because of their social standing, or they're in some powerful position, or they're an IG influencer with a lot of followers, and so people think that, you know, that requires some respect more than anyone else. And of course, there are people, there's a hierarchy. We have our elders, and we have our teachers, we have our spiritual masters. But this is a little bit more. This is Krishna's exemplifying a great truth, and that is of seeing everybody as equal, and he reciprocates with them in the way that they show up for him. So vidya vinaya sampane, right? By seeing, by virtue of true knowledge, he sees everyone equal. And there's in one of the Upanishads, Kena Upanishad, it talks about the Paramatma, which is related to this this verse in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 5th chapter, Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmane Gavi Hastini Suni Chaiva Svapakecha Pandita Samadarshinaha. So seeing the Paramatma in every living being. And the Kena Upanishad talks about being able to discern this Paramatma. I'm sorry, not the Paramatma, the Atma in every living being. And it says that the wise, so it's using the same word that Krishna is using in Bhagavad Gita, the wise become immortal. And so when they depart from this world, so what does that mean, become immortal when we depart from this world? It means we stop dying. We go back to Godhead because we have this clear vision now, this true knowledge that is being lived and not just repeated. So we can't go back to the spiritual world if we're causing a disturbance by judging people, by trying to control people or wishing they were different. Seeing this, seeing people as less than, seeing people as more than, seeing ourselves as more than, seeing ourselves as less than. So there's that equality that should pervade all of our relationships at the deepest level, because there are differences in people and in you know, our, like I mentioned before, our elders, our teachers, and sometimes, and so we won't be able to go to the spiritual world and disturb things there and try to say, well, you know, you're not organizing this Krishna Lila quite right. I think I can do it better, or look how good I do this. That's probably what we were doing and how we ended up here to begin with. And so sometimes it's easy to treat people as equals when we perceive them to be of a higher standing than us. Then it's kind of easy that, oh, well, they're just spirit souls anyway, they're just like me. But what about when someone is perceived as, or has a different standing than us? Can we treat them as equals too? Our enemies, people who have harmed us, envious people, or even non-devotees. This is a very, this can sometimes be a prominent thing when someone doesn't follow Krishna consciousness, or they haven't quite gotten to the place where we are, and we tend to become puffed up and think, well, you know, I know the absolute truth, so you know, I'm better, and we behave that way, and people can feel that, you know, oh, you're still eating meat, you know. Yes, okay, we've created some changes. But this derision that comes with it, sometimes, if we're not careful, can be a very dangerous thing. And so this is what we're here to learn, because we forgot who we are, that we're eternal loving servants of that absolute truth. We forgot how to love, that this is our nature and this is our struggle. So Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj calls this world the school of love. So what does that mean? That means we're learning how to love. We're remembering how to love. And so Krishna is accepting. He's not just tolerating people. He accepts, you know. Sometimes we also run into that little pitfall of, you know, we may see someone as a certain type of person, or just, you know, dislike them or wish that they were different, and we just tolerate. But tolerate is different than accept. This radical acceptance is much different than just tolerating. Tolerating still implies there's something wrong with you, so I will tolerate. And so Krishna doesn't judge. He sees others equally, and he gives his love, his respect, his mercy to all varieties of living beings. And who are we to do anything different than that? And so I think it's telling that this verse and these verses in this chapter are specifically describing all of these different people that we would consider as maybe not in a social standing where we can treat them as equals. So if we think about our present day and time, usually let's take, for example, the prostitutes that were mentioned. Oftentimes, or most often, people are seeing these people with this profession as somewhat not worthy of respect or being seen as equal. And so it may be telling in this chapter, this is what is, they're being represented here. And Krishna's not saying, oh, you guys stay over there, you don't get my respects and my mercy. He reciprocates with people with how they come, not what their standing is, their social standing. And so this is part of the Jnana Yoga that is described in the Bhagavad Gita, right? Who we are, and what we're not. And so how can we get to Bhakti Yoga if we haven't even understood Jnana Yoga? How can we love without having the right understanding of who we are to begin with? And so this is preliminary. If we don't know who we are, how can we know who anyone else is? So Krishna knows who everyone is. So he has no difficulty. Anyone that comes to him, he takes. It's being described here that he came forward to the people who were offering him greetings and respect. So he came forward. Srila Prabhupada says that if we take one step towards Krishna, he takes 10 towards us. So this giving of himself in reciprocity, more than we deserve, that this is his mercy. He's not seeing people there based on their external occupation or their external caste or social standing. We don't know who anybody is, and so we may see the externals of someone, but we have no idea who a person is, like their eternal identity, right? Because we all have these eternal identities. And so he's showing us that. He's saying, I'm not looking at, this and that, how powerful you are, what, how much money you have, or how well you're dressed. I'm reciprocating with what you're giving me. And so this is our obstacle. So Lord Nityananda knows who we are, right? This is described in the story of Jagai and Madai. He knew who they were, and Haridas Thakur, they went out to inspire people to chant the holy name, more than inspire, begging them to chant the holy name. And that wasn't just, Jagai and Madai weren't just tolerated. He didn't just look at them and say, oh man, these poor souls. He accepted them because he knew who they truly were, that they were eternal servants of the absolute truth, and he saved them. He didn't, these drunk guys are dirty criminals, they deserve what they get. He tried to save them even after he was offended and attacked. And so they were offered the highest mercy, not only of being given the holy name, but of having direct association with Lord Chaitanya. They got to be his servants, close associates, because someone knew this is not truly who you are, and so you're behaving in a way that doesn't befit you. And please chant and remember who you are. This is the mercy of the devotees, that they remind us of who we truly are. And so in this way, we can remind people of who they are, but not done out of pride, not done out of a sense of superiority. We don't offer Krishna consciousness because, we like, oh, I'm better now. I've learned, and I'm doing so well, and I have the truth, and now you should do what I do. How many relationships have been broken because of this? Friendships, families, partnerships in the name of Krishna consciousness. So yes, association is important, especially when we're not fully situated, right? We're impressionable. Our minds are often like impressionable, like children, unless we're really, really well situated and we don't deviate. But it's not because we're better than others that we are offering this. It's because we know that we're Jagai and Madais, that we're fallen, and that qualifies us. Like, okay, here's how I got saved. Here's what's reminding me of who I truly am. And so let this also remind you. Narottam Das Thakur sings about this, and he sings to Lord Chaitanya. He says, like, you're here to save the fallen. I'm fallen, so come and save me. This is qualifying me for saving. So a lifeguard doesn't go out and save someone who's not drowning. So we're drowning, we need saving. And so when we recognize that we're fallen, that we're no better than anyone else, we're not judging or disliking or gossiping. Gossiping is a very, very, one, it's an offense. It's an offense to the devotees to speak wrongly of them. It actually will completely undermine our spiritual lives, our spiritual practice. But often gossiping is about this feeling of superiority. Oh, let me tell you, what's going on with this poor person, so that we can feel like, yeah, too bad that that's happening for them. So we must be really careful about how we, speak about people, share about people, because it's about the mercy that is being exemplified by Krishna, by Lord Chaitanya, by Lord Nityananda. It's mercy, mercy for you, mercy for me, mercy for the whole planet. And when we put Krishna in the center, what else do we need? If I have love, then I can't be envious. And if I have love, then I'm patient. And if I can love more than my own gratification and my own comfort, then I do the right thing. Then I'm coming from the right place. And so then we're qualified to be out of the school of love and graduate to the spiritual world, where we won't have any of these anarthas. So if we're courageous enough to have radical acceptance, radical forgiveness, both of which equal unconditional love, then we don't only repeat the truth of what's in the Shastra. We don't only talk about we are all equal. Unless you upset me, then we're not so equal. Unless you do something wrong, then we don't just say it, we live it. So, for example, not too long ago, and it happens in other countries, but not too long ago, we had a public leader, political leader, who was not very well liked. And so it caused a lot of turmoil in the country. But I always wondered how many people could see that this was also another living being, another entity whose soul is exactly like ours, in a sense, maybe in a different place as far as relationship with the divine, with the absolute truth. But this is what it means to see equally. So someone that is clearly misguided or living different principles than we are, can we still see with those same eyes? And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj again talks about this, how we may not agree with the actions of our brothers or sisters, but can we see that they are still our brothers and sisters? And so that's where, there's that, what's that phrase, where the rubber meets the road, right? That's where the difficulty comes, when it's easy to see people as equal if we agree with what they're saying and what they're doing. But can we see people as equal? And this is at the metaphysical level, at the deep soul level, not that we go out and hang out with people who don't live our principles in that sense, because we choose our association wisely. But can we see those people as being the same as us? And this is probably the one of our greatest challenges. So on the other side of this, we don't see ourselves accurately. Sometimes we have this ability. It's a tremendous thing. I often wonder how I manage to do it. We can be very loving and very forgiving and very patient, very kind to people, but not to ourselves. And so this is an incredible feat, I think, sometimes, that we can manage to do this. And ultimately, we can only give what we have. And if we are also not seeing ourselves with that clear vision, then there's also a place where there's some work to be done, because this seeing everyone as equal includes myself. So I can't treat others better than I treat myself. I can't treat myself better than I treat others. Sometimes the way that we are in relationship with ourselves, such as the way we take care of ourselves, or the way we may set ourselves up for some difficulty or some suffering, right? So one of the sufferings is that suffering that's caused by our own minds. And sometimes I think we have a big part in that. And our self-talk, how we perceive ourselves, if we look at it from a detached point of view and see that we are also a living spirit soul, if we look at it from that perspective, we're also can be very offensive to this servant of Krishna, right? Even if that happens to be ourselves. So the detachment is not just of seeing other people as equals and as servants of the Lord, but seeing ourselves as that as well. So having that little bit of detachment too, so we're not, on the one side, yes, I'm fallen, I need saving, but on the other hand, the false ego, because it's so insidious and so tricky, comes to that, I'm the most fallen, and then Prabhupada says, you're not the most anything, stop that. And so that's the other side of the false ego. So how would it be if I saw myself through Krishna's eyes? If I were to acknowledge my good qualities and offer them in service? Because if I don't acknowledge what I have to offer, then what is it that I'm truly offering? If I think that that I'm just no good at anything, and can't acknowledge the gifts that we have been given, then how can we put them into service? We can't be grateful for something that we haven't accepted. And Krishna has given us so many gifts, so much talent, so much sensitivity, so much ability. And one has to know, yeah, this is what he gave me. I didn't create it myself. It's not by my own doing that I have these things, so that I can be this way. It is only by Krishna's mercy and by his love. But first I have to accept. And if I accept, it means I acknowledge, and then I can offer. Otherwise, if we just think we are the worst of the worst, then we're only offering the worst. And so accepting our bad qualities with compassion and patience, while acknowledging our good qualities with humility, so that we can offer them in service. And keeping this proper perspective, if I'm not this body, it also means I'm not my mistakes. I'm not, these anarthas. That's not who I am. It's just part of the things that are, I'm here to work on, this school of love. So there's a Christian, I don't know if he's a speaker, just a Christian person who preaches and speaks. And so he says that the deepest issue is not what I think of myself, but can I come to a place, I'm paraphrasing, can I come to a place where I can join, I will change the word God to Krishna, where I can join Krishna in knowing who Krishna knows me to be? Can I join Krishna in seeing who he sees when he looks at me? And so this man, I don't remember his name, he says, this is salvation. This is true salvation. So this is the remembering of who. If I remember who I am, then I can remember who you are. If I remember who you are, I can remember who I am. If we can remember who Krishna is, we can remember who we are. And so it's all this just remembering, just relearning how to love, not learning how to tolerate. We tolerate the weather, we tolerate when it's cold, we tolerate when it's hot, not people. We don't tolerate people, we accept people, we love people, we have mercy. And maybe that means we have to do that from afar, we have to keep our distance, and that's completely acceptable. But people aren't just to be tolerated. This is a very this is a perspective that just says, oh, you're down here, I'm up here, and so I must tolerate you. This isn't the way of love, right? And so this lack of unconditional love is what keeps us here. It keeps us firmly grounded in the material world. And it's not because we don't chant our rounds fast enough or get them done at a certain time, or we don't we don't fast fully when the fasting days come, or it's because we don't love fully. And so the chanting of the holy names, the fasting on these sacred days, is to remind us and help us on the path of purifying so that we can love. So it's not the actual thing that we're doing or not doing. It's about the purification process so that we can remember. And therefore, this qualifies us for returning back to our spiritual home. And this is the secret, is that it starts with us, right? The way out is going into coming in contact with Paramatma in our heart. So going deeply into ourselves with all honesty, with all courage, because it takes a lot of courage to be on this path of self-realization, of remembering. So we realize how fallen we are. That takes a lot of courage. It's always easier to realize how fallen other people are. That seems to not take that much courage. It's like very easy. But this courage that I can realize who I am, our anartas. I once heard someone ask the question of, what's the point of having all of these past lives if I don't remember what I've done wrong, or why I ended up here, or what the problem is that I need to solve? And the answer was, if we look closely enough, and I think that this also requires a lot of courage. If we look closely enough into our own minds, into our own being, we can find the thing that brought us here. We can find those anartas. We can find those deep habits of our existence that have caused us to be here. But it requires some clarity and some honesty, not the, oh, I'm just the worst, just like honestly looking into who we are, how we are, and we can see, oh, I see what the problem is here. I see. And interestingly enough, the world shows us that. We can call it, one thing is we can call it karma. We can call it cause and effect, but it's a mirror holding itself up to us and saying, yeah, this is what you need to look at. And so there's a lot of value in what comes into our perspective, the things that are uncomfortable, the things that bring us some difficulty, that there's a way in there that's often the key. But what happens is the mind naturally wants to turn and look the other way and just, oh, this is so difficult. I don't know why this is happening. Yeah, oftentimes we don't know why something's happening. The process of karma is beyond our understanding. But sometimes we can look and just, or not look, and just not go deeply enough and see what is happening. What is this here to teach me, right? If this is a school of love, what is this here to teach me? How can I love deeper? How can I forgive? How can I accept? All the meanwhile, we're chanting and crying out for help as the drowning jivas that we are. And so I really, this idea that the way out is in, just puts the responsibility on us, not on, if I change my community, if I move somewhere else, if I move to another country, if I move to another state, if I get new friends, if I get a new job, if I get a new partner, a new wife, a new husband, all of these things. It's not that. Sometimes those things are required for different reasons, but we're not discussing that. It's ultimately about us. We bear the burden of our own existence, not the situation outside of us, the political party that is in power now, or the gas prices and the food prices going up. It's yes, these things are struggles and they cause difficulty, but this is the material world. But going deeply into ourselves with the help and the support of our spiritual masters, of our teachers, of our guides, the external manifestation of Guru in the heart, and that's how we manage the outside world. And then how we manage our inside world is by the internal manifestation of Guru in the heart. And so we're helped all around. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Sarvasya Chaham Hridhi Sanivishto, right? So I am seated in everyone's heart. And he's exemplifying that. He's living that by the way he is behaving and treating people at this most joyous celebration. And so I think that we can take example from this, and our takeaway can be of just asking ourselves, where am I on this, seeing equally, not just the people outside of me, on the other side of me, but this other living being too. How am I seeing? How am I accepting? Not just tolerating. How am I loving? What does that look like? And just asking ourselves, if I did love unconditionally, what would that look like? And so the answer is different for all of us. It's personal because we have different circumstances. Doing something loving can mean one thing for one person based on the circumstance, and another based on their own circumstance. So it's not a cookie cutter thing. And Krishna doesn't treat people like like in a cookie cutter way. This is what this verse is saying. He's reciprocating as it behooves. Yathavidi, that was the word, as it befits them. Not, he treats everyone in the same exact way. He treats everyone in the way that they show up for him. And so those are my thoughts on this most beautiful verse. Does anyone want to have some comments or questions or some thoughts about this verse and the party that is happening as Krishna is entering Dwarka? Hey, I see my friend. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Thank you so much for the class. Very beautiful. If anyone has a question, they can use the raise hand emoji and ask their question. Shivara, Prabhu, do you have a question?
No. Hare Krishna, and my obeisance to the Mataji for the nice class. Anyway, now that you asked me, I just want to say what is going on in my mind. It's not a question as such. Listening to many of the speakers, or the few that I've been able to listen to this week, you you get an impression, that it's like there is an ISKCON outside ISKCON. You hear devotees speak their realizations, and so warming, so lovely, so inclusive. No discrimination, no ill feelings, and you start wondering, are these the same people in our society? Are they living outside the society? Because what we hear often is not criticizing, but what we hear often is that our philosophy is so nice. And when you hear devotees speak, it's so nice. But when it comes to dealings and interactions, people just want to keep off from each one. So what is the cause of this? I've not had any devotees speaking anything that would encourage ill feelings, misgivings, and mistreatments. You don't hear that. Everyone speaks so simply and nicely, and it's so encouraging. But when it comes to daily dealings, what can we say is at the background of so much disharmony sometimes that we feel among devotees? So maybe Mataji can just say something about this. It's personal feeling. Sorry.
Hare Krishna. There was a little bit of blaring noise in the background, but I hope Mother Lila got it right. Hare Krishna. Mother Lila.
Hey, Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhu. That is an excellent point. I love that point so much. You're absolutely right. So we all have these beautiful realizations, and we're it doesn't seem to match up, huh? Especially this treating people as equals. It's not seeing people based on their standing or their gender or this or that. This is very interesting. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know why. We have this. Arjuna asks this of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, I know better, I want to do better, I just can't seem to do better. And and so this is a question that is not new. It's been going on since, it happened to Arjuna, who was a pure devotee and who had control over his even though he was feeling dejected at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, he had more control than most of us do. And so that was a struggle. And I wonder if we're just not looking closely enough at our own behavior, at our own internal landscape, and recognizing when we are not exemplifying the Shastra in the way that it was meant to be. And we see that so much. There's even the whole situation with women and initiating gurus, which is based on gender. And so to me, and this is just my humble opinion, but things being based on gender, not qualification, is not what Srila Prabhupada's idea was of this process, right, of this society. At the same time, this can lead to, so there's an interesting balance that needs to be struck. We just always must be very careful, because how do we create change within our own society, within our own world, whether it's ISKCON or not ISKCON, or our state or our country? How do we inspire and create change if we're saying, well, you don't want to criticize, or you don't want to say that something's wrong, because that's actually one thing that we need to do. If something's not right, we need to speak about it. And that usually is in the form of a criticism, a constructive criticism. And so that's another topic, but truth is very important. So these ideas of like, if I'm thinking something or saying something, does this need to be said? Does this need to be said by me? And does this need to be said right now? And those are it's just one way of how we can gauge, because if we don't do any, it's like in New York, if you see something, say something, otherwise, and then we have this kind of thing where you really want to mind your own business. And at the same time, you're like, oh man, this could actually mean something. So we have to be really, really careful with those things, because if we are allowing things to happen, then we're an accomplice, right? We're just not saying anything means we're allowing it and we're okay with it. And so this is that's on the external part. On the other side, the internal, is that we only have control over ourselves. That's all we can do, is just look at ourselves and see, where am I falling short? Where am I not following this? So before I look at other people and say, hey, you're not following the Shastra, I have to look at myself. And I heard from Brahmatirtha Prabhu, who speaks here sometimes. He says, before you criticize someone, say 5 good qualities that they have, and then you can criticize. By the time you found 5 qualities, you're like, oh man, this person, okay, fine. So that's something. I don't know the answer to the question. I'd be curious to hear about others, but it seems like, going back to Arjuna, it's just part of human nature, and this is where the danger is. It's like, oh yeah, I read Bhagavad Gita and I read Srimad Bhagavatam twice, and I'm, pure devotee syndrome. I'm a pure devotee, and everyone, should just do it my way. But we're not looking in. It's very, the ego is very insidious. The false ego is very insidious. It creeps in even into our devotional service. I'm doing devotional service. Why isn't anybody seeing how great I'm doing this? Someone please come and tell me that I'm great, right? This need for distinction and adoration. And what was the other one? So I don't know, but one thing we can do is just look a little bit closer with a little bit more courage into ourselves. Yeah, and speak up when speaking up is required. That's really important. There's a pastime in New York, Srila Prabhupada, the way he responded to something like that. There was a temple president and president's wife who were grossly mistreating the devotees there, very much mistreating them, doing all kinds of awful things. And if I'm not mistaken, it is said that they were offering meat to the deities, chicken. And a lot of devotees didn't do anything. They just, okay, you suffer along and you just, oh, this is purifying me. I don't know. I can't speak for them. However, at some point, some of the devotees just had enough, and they went and they locked the door, and the temple president and temple president's wife were not allowed to come back in. They kicked them out and they locked the door. And when Prabhupada found out about this, he congratulated the people who had stood up and done this, and he berated the leaders who had not done this. And so that's just an example of, when things are wrong, things are wrong. Yeah, I just thought I would share that, because it's, there's time, place, and circumstance for these things. We have a hand raised.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lila. That was a very beautiful response to Srimad Varaha Prabhu's question. Sri Ganga Prabhu, you may unmute and ask your question. Yeah, Prabhu, you can go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hare Krishna, Dandava Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji, for this beautiful rendition. And it speaks a lot about personalism and personal reciprocation and love. My question is raised from the purport, and it is two dimensions. One, is there love in impersonalism? Is there love in impersonalism? That is first one. Then in the purport, it is mentioned towards the end. It said there are others who designate him as impersonal. And so the Lord also does not take any personal interest. There are others who designate him as impersonal. You know, in this whole showcase of festivity and exchanges and loving reciprocation, he said, but there are others who designate him as impersonal. And what is the Lord's attitude? He says, so the Lord also does not take any personal interest. So I just wanted to shed little light on this. Is there love in impersonalism? And then like this.
Yes, thank you. For sometimes impersonalism is a stepping stone to personalism. You know, a lot of people who weren't raised in Krishna consciousness have this experience of understanding the divinity through the impersonalist eyes. And I'm just thinking, and I also came this way through Krishna consciousness, you know, this impersonal perspective of, you know, the universe that somehow responds to you, and, you know, it doesn't have a form, doesn't have a name, it doesn't have a personality per se, but there is love. There's love for everything that's included in that. And I think that the distinction is that there could be love in impersonalism, but the relationship isn't the same. So you can love something. I can even love like some form of, you know, material need, some prakriti. I can love my car. I don't have a car, but I can love my car. But there's no relationship there. So it's a different rasa. It's completely different. The reciprocity is different. And as far as Krishna, so I don't know if that answers your question, but I think there is love, because love is such a natural response. You know, we can love a tree, but the tree doesn't reciprocate with us quite the same way as a person would do. But, you know, if we define love as recognizing the essence of something and loving and honoring and respecting that, then sure, there can be love in that. A lot of people in this world, you know, and I know that Srila Prabhupada was very strong against impersonalism because he was trying to leave us with this idea of personalism, but not because there isn't some legitimacy to impersonalism. It's just not the way we do it. We understand things different. But people can have a lot of love for fellow living entities and for the earth through this impersonalist perspective. To them, the divine, they only go as far as the Brahman, the Brahma, and that's as far as they go. But that is still a part, one of the aspects of the divine is still the impersonal. So sure, I think there can be love there. And as far as him not reciprocating or reciprocating in kind with, you know, not showing interest, I had a thought about that. I think he still loves them. I think he still loves them because that's just what he is. He just doesn't he doesn't impose on people. So sure, Krishna just reciprocates in kind, but there isn't anyone that he doesn't love. You know, he says in Bhagavad Gita, I see everyone equally and I think that implies with love because he is pure love. But I am particularly favorable to my devotees, even when he's chopping heads off the demons, and you know, that's still love. He took them back in. So I think maybe that's part of his love. This is, I don't know, please stop me if this is a speculation, but the fact that he doesn't impose on us could be love, right? Because he's not forcing it. He's saying, all right, you do whatever you want. I respect your choices and I respect the timeline that you're on. And if you want to take 100 million births to come back, I will be here waiting for you. I won't shun you when you return. But you do what you need to do. You go explore the material world as much as you want, and I'll be here. And if that isn't love, I don't know what is. Because, you know, love has to be, we have to have the ability to withhold it and not give it for it to be free, willing. You know, if we were just forced to give it, then it doesn't count. Then it's not as powerful. It's not as valuable if we have to give it. So yeah, sure. I think that's Krishna's love, or at least I can interpret it that way. But if there's other opinions on that, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, my concept or my stance is if you take the Rupa Goswami's mention of Priti Lakshana in the Upadeshamrita, there is exchange. If you say he doesn't care, there is no exchange. So it means that in love also, there is gradation from what you answered. That's what I can take from it. But then my understanding and concept of love, you know, when you started, you said, love doesn't mean tolerating. So if there's no exchange, it could also interpret tolerance. You're just tolerating them because you don't want to interfere. But it's not that it's the best of situations. I don't know if I'm making a point.
Yes. No, you're right. There is gradation, because even with our relationships, we have acquaintances, people that we just know and we're friendly with, and we can say there's some form of love there, right? Some respect and some honoring, but the deep, profound heart-to-heart relationship isn't there. But it could still be based on love. It's just it's what you said, a different grade of love. And one of the rasas that we have with Krishna is this, you know, Shanta rasa of just
neutrality.
Yeah. And so that can also be, you know, we can see people from afar and not be very close to them, or sometimes we have family members who we don't spend a lot of time with, some distant relatives or some cousins. There's some love there. There's some, you know, we have to define what is love. If it's acceptance, honoring, respect, seeing the essence of something or someone. If we can define that as love, then sure, there can be different kinds of relationships. Not every single relationship is going to be, you know, this deep, highest relationship. There's gradation, and that makes things interesting, no?
Yes, Bishop was mentioning in relationship and association that there are some association or relationship that are forced. So there's no exchange. You just have to be in it because circumstances have warranted that you be there. So that is also what Santa Ras is like. Yes, it's there, but there is no interaction.
Right.
But when we talk of prema or love, there is exchange, giving. So I am beginning to see that there seems to be a difference in association, difference in relationship that is not loving relationship.
Yes, there is a difference. There's definitely a difference. And I don't know, I think they're all okay, right? They're all just because it's by choice that when we turn our consciousness towards a relationship is when we can deepen it. And the problem becomes when we are ignorant of our relationship with things or people. We are always in relationship, but are we conscious of it? And only when we're conscious of that relationship can we choose to behave. I'm thinking of, like, for example, the relationship that we have with this earth, who is a person. Many people are not aware that they're in relationship. And so the relationship is there, we're just not conscious of it. We don't think about it. We don't think, where does my food come from? What damage are we doing? But if we can turn the light of our consciousness towards that relationship or any relationship, then we can express the love that is naturally there. Because we are we're loving beings. And so a lot of it just has to do with consciousness. Even this impersonalist relationship that we can have with the divine, it's just because we haven't turned our consciousness to the personal aspect of Krishna. So the relationship is there, but we have to put in our part, right? We have to become conscious, become aware, and then choose. Hey, what kind of relationship do I want to have here? At the same time, I think, yeah, Krishna still, he doesn't become offended when someone doesn't have these relationships with him. He accepts any and all. And he doesn't, I don't think, he just tolerates them. Maybe some of us require being tolerated. But he accepts them. He goes that step further. And the evidence in that is the moment that someone turns to him, he reciprocates in whatever small way. And so that means he's not just tolerating, that means he's accepting. He's okay. And can we be okay with the relationships where we don't receive the way we want to receive? Can we accept that? That would be unconditional love, right? Even if you treat me not the way I want to be treated, or you don't love me fully the way I want to be fully loved, and do things that I think are best, can I still love you anyway? That I think is Krishna's example.
So can we use this indices in answering what Prabhu Varaha just asked now? That we become indifferent or we are impersonal, but still we accept it. So either we don't complain and we accept ISKCON for what it is, or we just being personal, seeing that there's no reciprocation, but there's a relationship. I don't know. Can you at any point join them? These statements about impersonalism, love, relationship, and ISKCON outside ISKCON.
Yeah, that's good. Let's see. Well, we can only be an example, huh? We can only be the example for the kind of world that we want to create. And if we can, that's the only thing that we have control over, being the example of how our spiritual ancestors, we should say, our parampara has lived the Shastra and what we understand that to be. At the same time, we can create change or help create change without losing that love and respect. And I think there's a balance. We can't just like, oh, everything's fine, it's all Krishna's mercy, and oh, it's fine if people are being mistreated, it's fine if things aren't right. How do we handle conflict? you ask questions, right? If someone's doing something that is questionable, we ask questions like, why is this happening? What do you think about this? Why this behavior? Why this? So there are ways of conflict resolution. So acceptance, let's be clear about this, that acceptance and love does not mean that we allow a dharma to take over. That's not what the Bhagavad Gita is saying. That's the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna's like, I love all these people, you know, and I accept them for who they are, and they took my kingdom, and you know, it's fine. I love them. I accept. You know, give me this tiny little piece of land. I don't need anything. And Krishna's like, no, that's not the point. So Bhagavad Gita is telling us what it is. It doesn't mean you just, you know, roll over. There's a saying, right? You just roll over, you know, lay down and roll over and just like, okay, everything's fine. No, that's not what our acharyas say about creating change. Even Lord Chaitanya, you know, he saw there was a problem, and his the Sankirtan movement was a direct response to that problem. Right. So love, Martin Luther King, he was all love and acceptance. And, you know, even if we use the word tolerance in a different context, but that didn't mean he wasn't out there fighting in the streets. So no, tolerance and or acceptance and love does not mean we just allow things, because then that is also a dharma. So it's we have to be very careful with that and be very mindful and thoughtful of how we either accept or don't accept. I wonder if anyone has, what do you think, Prabhu?
Yeah, I accept. I agree with you.
Oh, Hare Krishna. That was good. That was so good. Anyone else have any thoughts on this? Because these are the things that we should be discussing.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Lila, for your class and particularly for your answers. Now, I have a question. My question is, one, as devotees or aspiring devotees, we oftentimes address ourselves as fallen. No, I'm a very fallen devotee. And there is this popular saying that he that is down needs fear no fall. So if I always consider myself fallen, then there is no need for me to have any fear that I'm going to fall at any point in time, because I'm already fallen. And with this understanding, I will be kept down there for almost ever. The opposite to that is when I first joined ISKCON, I'm using myself as an example. When I first joined ISKCON, of course, once you join ISKCON, your whole anticipation, at least during those times, is to have initiation. I was living in the temple for so many years and I wasn't given initiation. So I was afraid that I might die without having initiation. So I asked Dr. Tirtha Maharaj, what happens to a bhakta who is trying his best to serve Guru and Krishna, but did not receive initiation and passed away? What happens? And so Maharaj's answer was, well, then the Guru will arrange for such a soul to have association with Guru and Krishna in his next life. And then to end it, he said, but you don't have to worry. You're already a devotee. So that particular phrase, do not worry, you're already a devotee, that always reminds me that I am a devotee. And because I am a devotee, there are certain expectations of me, and I have to live up to them. And simply because of this simple phrase that you are already a devotee, I'm struggling every hard way that I can to act as a devotee. And so I would want you to help bring about the balance as to seeing yourself as a devotee and seeing yourself as non-devotee. In either way, you have to serve, you have to work really hard to serve Guru and Krishna. So I just want you to help bring us to the center. If I'm a devotee, what do I do to keep myself as a devotee? If I'm so fallen, what do I do not to remain down there and bring myself up? Hare Krishna.
Brilliant, Prabhu. Thank you for sharing that. Brilliant. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. We can use that as an excuse to not do better, not be better, because after all, I'm so fallen, I'm so full of anartas, I can't help it, you know, this is where I am. Also the false ego. I think it goes back to what I was saying before of seeing equally. If I take my perspective of myself outside of myself and look at this person, this, you know, if I were looking at myself from outside, I would see differently. I would see, wow, this person, yes, there's all these faults. Yes, they struggle with this and that, but look what they're doing. They're trying, they're making effort, they are actually getting better with this and getting better with that, and you know, looking at themselves and trying to change their habits and be different. So I would be I think a little bit more compassionate, right? If I could see outside of myself. We're often just thinking, oh, I'm just the worst. Now it's important to realize if we are on the path and we are walking forward, then are we fallen? Excuse me 1 second. Sorry about that. So we have to remind ourselves we are actually walking on this path. We are fallen means we're on the floor and can't move. But if we're putting one foot in front of the other, stepping one step in front of the other, we're on the path. And yeah, we're on our way to being those devotees. The other thing to remember is that there's nothing that needs to be fixed about myself. That is already our true nature. We just have to uncover the things that prevent us from remembering that. And so, and this helps us not just in how we look at ourselves. We are already devotees. It's our nature. We can't be anything but devotees. We just forgot. And the same for other people. They are already devotees of the Lord. They are already pure devotees, but they forgot. So this seeing ourselves clearly means we got to get real too. We got to see where we need help, and we got to see where we're actually doing the right thing, because you know, I think as humans, we need to be reminded that you're doing a good job. You know, I've heard of a 6-year-old who was, you know, painting his picture, and he was walking around with his picture, and he said, I'm doing a really good job. I did such a good job. He was 6 years old telling himself that he did a good job, and someone taught him to do that. And so he will, when he does a good job, will know that he's doing a good job and is accepting himself and is moving forward, and then can keep growing. So you're absolutely right. We do need to find that balance. And that, I think, starts with equal vision. We are so often are looking at ourselves from this perspective of I am so awful or I am so great. What about just seeing objectively, ourselves objectively? What am I doing? What am I not doing? What is right? If I saw you, I would never say to you the things that I say to myself, right? Oh man, why can't you get it together? Why are you doing this wrong? Why haven't you learned this lesson already? Oh my God, what's wrong with you? I would never say that to you. So why would I say that to myself? So I think, yeah, equal vision means equal vision, and that includes me. I hope that answers a little bit of that question.
Yes, it does. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Jai.
Does anyone else have a question? Well, Mother Lila, I think I have one more question. Let me see. I wrote down a question here. Well, see, Sri Krishna says in the Gita that there will never be anyone dearer to him, Krishna, than one who preaches his glories. Now, some of us are so fortunate we've been blessed with this treasure of information. And not just raw information, but how to apply the information. And even though we may not be applying the information cent per cent, as Srila Prabhupada oftentimes would say, but whatever we know and the little that we're practicing, it's so sweet. Yet we are so reluctant to sharing it with others. So my question is, how do we, in the first place, recognize that what we've been given is so precious and worth sharing? And then how do we plan and actually execute the sharing process? I know, especially with this pandemic, there is many online lectures, but it's particularly for those who are already devotees. We're not very much preaching to those who are not yet devotees. So my question is in regards to how do we get in touch with those who have not yet gotten in touch with this treasure in the midst of this pandemic? Maybe you have some good suggestion or idea. I would like to know, and I believe the rest of the devotees might also be interested to know. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. This is an interesting question, Prabhu. I think sometimes we have one thing is that our Shastra does say that we should not preach to people who are not ready, who are not believers. We don't want to disturb anyone. At the same time, I wonder if this would be an interesting question to ask many devotees and see what they say, if we can be honest and real about it. Sometimes it seems like we have a bit of an identity crisis. So that can influence us as far as sharing Krishna consciousness. And there's another reality that we're going against the grain, right? The world is going one way as far as sense gratification and the things that we as humans, as a society, are devoted to. So we're all devoted to something. And we're kind of on we're in the minority, even though, religion in general is such a big part of the world, but our particular tradition is a little bit different. So I don't know that we can only share what we have. I don't know that we can share if we're still doubtful, or if we're not fully convinced, or if we are concerned that people are just not going to take to it. this has been a question, because there are people who can be very enthusiastic and just share with everyone. And so these are individual questions of like, what is it that prevents us from, you know, we have the greatest treasure, and yet we're, you know, often, which, you know, Prabhupada said is appropriate, we're just trying to save ourselves. But Lord Chaitanya's mood, Radharani's mood is trying to save everyone else too, trying to get everyone out of the sinking ship per se. Again, based on love and compassion. So how do we share with people? One of the things that comes to mind is that we often present Krishna consciousness in this perfectly packaged, ideal way. And that doesn't often connect with people. You know, we can't just go to people and say, oh, this is Krishna, you should love him, because then everything will be great. And one practical thing that I'm finding in my own process of sharing Krishna consciousness, because it is our dharma to spread the holy names, is to be real with people and talk to people about our struggles and about where we've come from, where we're going. And I think that connects with people more than anyone. Instead of one example, instead of preaching to people about what they're doing wrong, we can connect with people about the struggles that we've lived through. And I think that sometimes we forget to do that. We forget that we came from that. You know, some of us were meat eaters in another part of our lives. And then we very quickly forget that we were very attached to that. And we're very quick to be condescending to other people who are still in that process. Or even with intoxication, you know, some of us had those experiences with intoxication, and we very quickly forget that we were loving it like, you know, like nobody's business. And now it's all like, you know, looking down your nose at someone because they're still in that process. That doesn't connect with people. So we have to be real. I think that is the most practical way. And this pure devotee syndrome is a real thing. You know, we are really trying our best to remember that we are devotees, but the danger to that is forgetting that we are actually still people and where we came from. And people don't, you know, we have to remind people that we are just like them and they're just like us. Some of us have just, you know, heard things that inspire us and helped us change our lives, but we are no different. And I think that's one of the places where we can sometimes work a little bit harder in being real and being honest and talk about what our struggles are and not pretend like, you know, we've got it all down. And yes, the regulative principles are the easiest thing in the world, and I don't struggle with that, and you should just follow. That's not going to connect with people. If we talk about the struggles of being a person and what helps us in this world to move past those struggles in a way that brings us joy, because that is our experience, that we experience happiness and more peace and more joy and a resiliency to move through this world and our struggles more than we were before. That will connect with people, you know, get to the nitty gritty of the difficulties, not, yeah, you know, I don't eat meat and I don't, you know, intoxicate and I don't gamble and I don't have illicit sex and now my life is happy. That's not why our life is happy. I mean, it is in one sense, but that's not what will make people happy. You just follow the principles and you'll be happy. It's not just that. It's a lot deeper than that. And so I think being real, be honest, be truthful, and let's not forget that we are all in the same boat, struggling with the same things. We got a gift, you know, someone said, hey, here's a lifeline and hold on to this. But yeah, I think we just have to be careful of the pure devotee syndrome. That doesn't connect with people. And that could be a reason why it makes it a little bit difficult to connect and preach. I don't want to use that word, sharing our gifts. What do you think, Prabhu?
Well, thank you very much. That helps me a lot. I mean, I know I also have to try in my own little way to preach in words and also in action. So I'll try my best. Hare Krishna, thank you. If anyone else has any question, you may ask. Otherwise, we'll bring the class to a close. Thank you so much, Mother Lila. Radha Kund, you have a question? Radha Kund. Okay.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your wonderful class. I could just listen to you all day talk. Mother, I have a question about how we should feel or react in a situation where somebody is talking ill about somebody else, expressing their hurt about somebody else to you. How should we respond to such a situation? It's quite awkward, but as devotees, how should we comfort that person in times like that?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. Thank you. Yes, it's difficult. One thing is we want to hold space for people and hear. And if someone is having a difficulty with someone that is dear to us, I think that part of being a good listener is to take ourselves out of what is being said for one moment, our own emotions and our own what is happening, and listen objectively. So in nonviolent communication, this is number one for being a good listener, is to listen objectively, to listen to the facts of what the person is saying to us, and also to go a little bit deeper and listen to what they're feeling. So it requires a little bit of a detachment. And this is, I had this happen with, a few months ago with a close friend. They had a very negative perspective and had some negative interactions with someone that is very close to me. And they at some point wanted to share what their experience was. And it was very painful to hear someone speaking of a loved one in such a way. But when someone is sharing their heart and opening their heart and expressing their feelings, it's not about me. It's not about what I'm feeling. I'm listening, I'm hearing to hear what this person's perspective was. Because if I start putting in my own things in between, it creates a wall. And then we come into conflict. Now I'm upset and bothered and hurt because of what this person has said about my dear loved one. And then we don't communicate. And I had to put those feelings aside and hear what this person was saying objectively. And they later thanked me for actually hearing them and understanding. At a later time, I was able to say, I appreciate you sharing this about this person, your experience, and sharing how difficult that was for you. And so I heard them. I could empathize with what they were feeling. And then I could say, this is my experience of this person now. Not trying to force it on them, not trying to change their minds. That's not my job. It's just to hear and to build an environment where people can share with me and I won't be upset. And this is particularly difficult when someone is sharing something about us that we have done, or they're hurt by something we've done, or in any kind of sharing. The first thing that becomes an obstacle is when I'm thinking, I'm putting my feelings in it, and I have to take myself out of that and just hear from a neutral perspective. And it's hard. This is why there's so much conflict. Someone has a problem with us, and or something we did or didn't do. And while they're trying to explain to us, we're thinking about how we're feeling, uncomfortable, angry, resentful. Oh, but you did this, or but you didn't do that, trying to defend ourselves instead of really hearing what the person is saying. And that takes a lot of practice, and it takes a lot of courage to, for one moment, put my feelings aside and just hear you, like really hear what is happening with you, what is hurting you and what is bothering you, what are you feeling? And then we can talk about, once I hear you, then maybe you'll hear me and what's hurting me. But this is, immediately we're defensive. And there's a difference between what you said about someone sharing and wanting to, share their heart and relieve themselves of a burden, and gossiping. That's different. When someone's just saying bad things about someone, we gotta walk away. We have to learn that strength of skill where this is hard for me. I still try. I say, I really can't, however you want to say, this makes me uncomfortable to hear this, or, you have to run away some way or somehow, just have to not be an accomplice to that kind of talk. But if someone's sharing, yeah, we listen. If we have that relationship where they're exposing their feelings, and it's not about me, it's about what you're feeling. And then we can communicate from a different level, I think. So that would be my suggestion. It has worked and is a difficult practice, and you can never learn it per se, just go deeper, and every situation is new. But when we're listening, we listen. It's not about me, it's about the other person. That's just my experience with nonviolent communication. Thank you for that question, Prabhu.
Thank you so much. That was such a beautiful answer.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mother Lila. If anyone has any other question, otherwise we'll bring the class to a close. Well, at this point, we'll ask all devotees to unmute themselves, and then we chant big Hare Krishna to express our appreciation to Her Grace Lila Devi for such a wonderful class, and more particularly the answers. The answers were all fantastic. Hare Krishna. And you have a very blessed weekend. So let's chant Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day. All glories to the assembled devotees. You're all amazing.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Have a beautiful weekend.
You too.
Hare Krishna. Hey, Haribol.
Bhaja Jana Rama